So we're going to begin. We're continuing with Tehilim, chapter 120, Kuf Chaf. Since many of the following chapters towards the end of the book are smaller, we'll be able to do several this evening. So tonight we'll do Kuf Chaf Aleph, Kuf Chaf Bet, 120, 121, and 122. These are very familiar because many of them are said on a regular basis in our prayers, and they contain various ideas about the future, about the temple, about the Bet HaMikdash, about Yerushalayim, and the first one, 120, about what is holding back Mashiach from coming. And you'll be surprised. Even though it does not appear to be talking about Mashiach in chapter 120, it does talk about a problem that has plagued the Jewish nation in the past, and it's still around, and that's called Lashon Hara, gossiping, negative talk, the damage that it does, the divisiveness that it provokes. And David HaMelech speaks about it because he very much, as you know, wanted to build the Bet HaMikdash, the temple. He prepared the blueprints, he laid out the foundation, but it was his son, Shlomo HaMelech, that built it. Still, he's aware. He's aware of the problems. He's somewhat aware of what the future holds. And therefore, a lot of what he shares with us is for our own benefit, for our own good. Pay attention to this. Hopefully there will come a time when you will be back home. So a lot of this is about the future, but it's also describing issues that we need to always have in mind, always keep in mind, that may be a source of trouble to the Jewish nation. Chapter 120, the Segula, the special powers of this chapter is in case you see a snake or a scorpion. You may not see any connection between that and this chapter, but it is a powerful chapter, so are the next ones, to be said on different occasions. So Shir HaMa'alot El Adonai Batzarat Ali Karati Vaya'aneni. So this is a song of ascents, Ma'alot, going up. You will notice that there are 15 of them, 15 Shir HaMa'alot. The next 15 chapters, they're all called Shir HaMa'alot. Ascents, talking about the steps in the Bet HaMikdash between Ezrat Israel and Ezrat Nashim, between the courtyard of the men and the courtyard of the women. There were steps, 15 steps. So these Shir HaMa'alot, these 15 Shir HaMa'alot represent those 15 steps that were between the two courtyards. It also represents the fact that on those steps the Leviim stood and sang and used their musical instruments to play. So it's connected to that area of the Bet HaMikdash, to that area of the temple. The Midrash, however, says that there was an incident that occurred with David HaMelech when he prepared the foundation for the temple. All of a sudden, as they were working there, the Tehom, the abyss, the depths of the earth, which contained tremendous amounts of water, those waters from the depths started coming up, and there was this great danger that they were going to flood. Tremendous flood was going to come out of it, and he wrote the name of Hashem on a piece of clay and threw it in, and that is what stopped it. So that has to do with the ma'alot, with the ascents, because it was going up, and then he put it back down, and he left it at only a certain level that would be useful, beneficial for the fertility of the ground. You still need some water, so he didn't want all the waters to go back down. He wanted it to be still close to the surface, but not to endanger the land. So that's an interesting midrash, that particular spot, apparently where the Bet HaMikdash was built, and today where the Temple Mount is right above a certain location on the earth where there's tremendous amounts of water, or at least that's where the source is of those waters in the depths. So this relates to that incident as well, composing the various Shir HaMa'alot in praising Hashem for what happened then. But here in the first verse, in the first pasuk, he says as follows: I have called out to Hashem in my distress, and he answered me. So who does one call when he's in distress? Well, we ask for help from different kinds of people. And that is the normal thing to do. However, David Melech was already very much aware that the one that can help him is only Hashem. Even though it's okay to ask people to help, it's okay to ask people for a favor, there are only messengers, there are only shalichim. Whether it's a doctor or whether it's a lawyer, you're asking for help. But in the end, pray directly to him, because he's the source of all the help. So when I was in trouble, when I was in distress, atzarat ali, karati, I called out to Hashem directly, vayaneni, and I was answered. He reminds us that prayer is powerful. If you call out, you're distressed, you may be answered. So don't give up hope and realize that sometimes that is what Hashem is waiting for, that you should connect with Him. And prayer is a powerful way to connect with Hashem because it shows that we depend on Him. We realize that the blessing comes from Him and all the salvation will also come from Him. Pasuk Bet, verse 2. Adonai hatzila nafshi misfat sheker milashon remiyah. So since we're talking about distress, we're talking about all kinds of trouble, David HaMelech is surrounded with all kinds of enemies. Enemies that will try to hurt him physically, and enemies that may not want to hurt him physically, but they will talk about him, and that is just as dangerous. Talking about someone can ruin someone's reputation, they can get in a lot of trouble. Even if it's true, you have to be very careful what you say about other people. So he's asking for help. Hashem, rescue my soul from the lips of falsehood, that's sfat sheker, milashon remiyah, from a deceitful tongue. So you have falsehood and you have deceit. What's the difference? Well, deceit, you don't know if it's true or false. You can't tell, it's deceiving. And there are people like that maybe smile, maybe put up a nice face, and they claim to be your friend, but it's all about deceit, it's remiyah. And he's had to deal with that too. And then of course there's outright falsehood, where it's complete sheker, without any basis whatsoever. Made up stories about him, fake news as they call it these days. He has to deal with all of this, and he's asking for help. Because no matter what you can do, there's a lot of people out there talking about you, people will believe it. That is why part of the halachot of Lashon Hara, part of the rules of negative speech is being careful not to accept, not to believe negative news about others. Investigate it. If you have any doubts, ask. Don't assume that it's true what you're being told. Maybe those individuals are fighting each other and you're just hearing one side of the story. Very, very dangerous. You can lose friends, you can get into a lot of problems as a result of hearing only one side of the story. If you're a judge, you're definitely going to be biased if you only heard one side and not the other side. You always have to hear both sides. So here, there's an emphasis on negative speech. But it could also be sheker. Sheker, falsehood, in many ways is worse because it's completely false, without any foundation. But even if it's true, if it's Lashon Hara, if it's negative, it's very damaging. So David HaMelech realizes that this is not within his control. There's nothing that he can do successfully to stop it, and he asks for Hashem's help. This is something that we need to do, and it is in our prayers. Some of our prayers contain these kind of requests from Hashem. Please protect me, save me from bad people, all kinds of bad people, evil people, bad neighbors, Lashon Hara, and the like. Don't assume that just because you're a nice guy that you won't have to suffer from all kinds of ridicule and all kinds of negative speech that people might say, rumors and the like. Rabbis tell us, just be careful not to give a negative impression. That's called marit ayin. Marit ayin means people see you do something and they may assume or perceive something that may be wrong. And that happens because people don't ask, don't investigate. So when they see you doing something, they reach their own conclusions. Whenever in doubt, ask someone. There's a lot of misunderstandings when people don't talk. Husband and wife, they need to communicate because otherwise they may judge negatively the other person's actions. Why isn't dinner ready? Husband comes home. You've had all the time in the day. You don't work. You're home. Well, you were talking probably on the phone, right? Why isn't dinner ready? If you have a conversation, if you talk to the person, you will find out that it's not their fault. Something happened unexpectedly that took that mother's attention. Maybe the child got hurt. I use this as an example always that, husband is hungry. He comes home after a long day's work and he expects, yes, but if you don't talk, there's room for a lot of misunderstanding. And if you start yelling and cursing or doing worse things, it's hard to repair afterwards. So be careful with judging. You don't have to be a judge, a real judge. You can be a normal person, but we're always judging people. And the one who's being judged has to be careful not to give the wrong impression, that they shouldn't make the mistake of judging him in a wrong way. So all of this is part of what he's talking about. There is a lot of sheker, there's remiyah, there's deceit, there's falsehood, there's misunderstandings, and David HaMelech asks for Hashem's intervention to help him with that. Now he speaks about those individuals who actually have this weakness, and he says as follows: "Ma yiten lecha, ma yosif lach lashon remiyah." What can he give you? And what further restraint can he add to you? Deceitful tongue. Rabbis explain this verse as follows: Hashem protects the tongue. The tongue is inside, it's not outside. The hands, the feet, everything is external, it's outside. It can do a lot of damage or harm. Here we're talking about something that's internal. The tongue is laying down, it's not even standing up, it's laying down. In other words, it's flat, inactive, internal. To speak, you have to open up your mouth. And you have two guards. You have the teeth and you have the lips. Look how much protection Hashem put to the mouth, to the tongue. Because once that tongue is loose, as they say in English, a loose tongue, it can do a lot of damage. So, what else can I give you? What else can I do for you to protect you? What other kind of restraint? You already have so much. It's like he's talking to the tongue. And be careful with this tongue, because once you open your mouth and you say something that is wrong, that is bad, it's going to be difficult to take it back. Whereas a sword, you took it out, you can put it back in a holster, right? A gun, you can put it back. Once the word has come out of that mouth, it has crossed the barriers, it's gone. You can't take it back. And that is why it's so damaging.
Even if the person say apologize?
Yes, even if he apologizes, because you will soon see in the next verse, even though there was an apology, deep down, the person is still hurt. And that may never go away, unless it's completely forgiving. And not everyone is completely forgiving, even though they say they are. So we're going to see that in the next verse. But here it's talking about how a loose tongue can be so dangerous compared to another weapon that you can decide not to use. With the tongue, once it's out, once words have been said, how are you going to fix it? Even if you ask for apology. And let's say you ask the person for apology, okay? What about everybody else who heard? Are you going to bring them all back? Oh, by the way, all of you who heard me say this, I didn't mean it. They're gone. They have their impression. The damage has been done. You may not be able to recover. Bring back all those people who may have overheard the conversation, and they've already formed a negative impression of this person. So this is something that David HaMelech points out because it's too common. A lot of people have this weakness. A lot of people make this mistake of using their mouth in a way that they shouldn't. Look at Pasuk Dalet 4. He's still describing this powerful tongue that does all this damage, and he compares it to the arrows. You resemble the sharp arrows of the mighty one who's shooting the arrows, and the coals of broomwood. Most people do not know what broomwood is, but that's a retamim. The coals of broomwood. Broomwood is a kind of tree or shrub that grows in the desert, and it offers a lot of shade. They used to use the wood of this tree to burn coals. the fire will last longer. Even though on the surface it may appear that the fire is cooled off, it's extinguished, inside it's still very, very hot. And that is what I was saying before. They may apologize, and the person might say, okay, I forgive you, but it's gacharer tamim. It's like the coals of the broomwood, where inside it's still hot, it's still hurt. So that's why he uses this example. We're talking about speech that behaves like arrows. What does that mean, like arrows? When a person wants to physically hurt another individual, he has to be a few feet away from him. With a tongue, you can be in Los Angeles and hurt someone in Israel or in Europe at great distances, like arrows, like shooting an arrow. You don't have to be close to him. That's the comparison to arrows. And as far as the comparison to coals out of broomwood, it's because they continue to be hot. There's a midrash about this that says that there were some individuals who warmed up some food, and a year later they came back to the same spot where they used this broomwood, and it was still a little hot. A year later. That's what the midrash says, that this happened. In other words, it somehow retains the heat a lot longer than ordinary coals. So this damage lasts. Even if you apologize, perhaps the person will continue to be hurt. The importance of all of this is not only because of the damage that it does. A lot of people don't realize that if they misuse their tongue, they're contaminating their mouth. The tongue, therefore, will not be effective in praying to Hashem. Hashem will not accept a person's prayer who misuses that mouth, that tongue, in the wrong way. If he's not careful with the Brit HaLashon, with the tongue, then his prayers will not go anywhere. All right, let's go on. Pasuk Hey, verse 5. Oya li ki garti meshech shachanti im ha'olei kedara. Now David HaMelech is bewailing or bemoaning the fact, woe to me that I sojourned or lived, garti, I stayed with Meshech, and I dwelt, shachanti ma'olei kedara, I dwelt beside the tents of Kedar. He's describing all kinds of nations where he has had to be as he was escaping, running away from his enemies. He's had to be with Meshech. There's different opinions as to where Meshech is, but it's that general area, not too far, somewhere in the Middle East. Kedar are the Bedouins, the Arabs, the nomads. He's had to go all over the place because of this Lashon Hara. He's had to run away. This also insinuates that Lashon Hara brings exile. It brings to the dispersion of people. People cannot get along, they don't talk to each other, or they talk negatively about each other, and this causes them to just wander off and go in all kinds of places. So part of the dispersion of the Jewish people has to do with this, just like it happened to him. Woe to me that I've had to spend my time in exile of sorts with these people because of all this Lashon Hara that I've had to avoid, that I've had to go away from. Look what it caused. It caused people to go in different directions. Pasuk Vav, verse 6. Rabat shachina la nafshim soneh shalom. Too long has my soul dwelt among those who hate peace. Here he's describing the diaspora, the long diaspora, that unfortunately for too long I will have to spend time and dwell among those who hate peace. What does it mean that those who hate peace? Who hates peace? Obviously everybody would love to have peace, but the problem is that for the Jew in exile, he will not know too much peace. He will have to unfortunately go from country to country where he will not find peace. Why not? Because he will be reminded that since you were not in peace with your own brothers, you will see how others will also now want to be in peace with you. This will be a reminder for you. Make up between yourselves. Otherwise there will be others who will hate you in the same way that you hate, in the same way that you come up with all kinds of stories that you make up about others, and that you say things that are not true, you will be accused as well. Everything is measure for measure. But look at the last verse of this chapter. Very powerful verse. Ani shalom v'chi adaber hemma lamilchama. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. This is quite familiar. The Jewish nation has always been a peaceful nation. They've always sought peace. They've always offered to be in peace with their neighbors, but not the neighbors. The neighbors did not always accept peace. Why not? The simple explanation is this is real anti-Semitism. In other words, hate for no other reason than to hate. Not because you're better, not necessarily because you're different, even though they claim that. You're different, you don't want to mingle with us. That's just an excuse. There's a certain hatred out there. There are certain people who want to hate. That's what they believe in. They believe in war, they believe in hatred, not in peaceful relationships, not in having harmony. So even if I speak and even if I pursue peace, I will never get it from them, because all they think about, even when I talk about it and I want and I ask them nicely, all they think about is war. What does this tell you? That you can try all you want to make peace with certain nations, not people. With people, you always have to make your best efforts. But with nations, certain nations are not going to be nice to you. And even if they are momentarily, it could be because they're afraid of you. Or it could be a trick. They're not necessarily sincere. And partially the explanation for this is what the French president de Gaulle said. Nations don't have friends, they have interests. It's all about interests. So you think diplomacy is real? Nah, it's all fake. It's not solid. Diplomacy is important. You have to be tactful, you have to be diplomatic. Of course, you have to try to calm things down. That's what diplomacy is supposed to be. But the intentions of those involved are not necessarily genuine, because there's some interest involved. It's all about interests, not solid friendships. So amongst nations, there's nothing we can do. It makes some sense that they all have interests. But amongst individual human beings, interests. Don't you want to have a solid friendship? Don't you want to be close to someone? Don't you want to live peacefully with your neighbor? And hopefully that should be everyone's desire. But apparently not everyone does. Even though he sought to have a peaceful coexistence with everybody that did not support him, that did not like him, he still pursued peace. They didn't want it. So even though David Melech is talking about his own personal experience, this is an important idea that applies amongst nations too. That the Jew will encounter a lot of hatred, even though he's well-intended. He means well. He wants peace. He will not easily get it, and even if it does, in the event he does, it will not last too long. It's too bad, but that's the way life is. There's nothing that we can do about it. There's a lot of evil in the world. Evil that doesn't want to live in peace. Why not just be friends? We'll help each other. What a beautiful world this could be, no? No. There's some that want to destroy you. There's some that want to control you. There's some that want to be the boss and justify with all kinds of reasons. That's not the Torah way. But what can we do? That's the world we live in until Moshiach comes. Chapter 121, Kuf Chaf Aleph, the Segulah, the special powers of this chapter, is if you go out at night by yourself. It's not a good idea to go out, especially late at night by yourself, because the nighttime is a time of judgment. It's a time where there are mazikim, all kinds of elements that can hurt you. And we talk about demons as well, depending where you live. So it's not a time to go out by yourself. If you do need to go out with somebody else. But if you need to, say this chapter. This particular one, 121, is a very, very famous chapter that we say in all kinds of situations when we ask Hashem for help directly from Him. 121. So, Shir Ma'alot Esayna Le'Ra'im Ma'in Yavo Ezri. This is a song of ascents. I lift my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? Look at the Hebrew and you will notice the difference between the second word here and the various other chapters that talk about Ma'alot. Here it says Shir La Ma'alot. To the ascents, instead of just a song of ascents. So the one explanation is that this particular one is also describing the 15 levels that the righteous will have when Mashiach comes. There will be 15 levels. So it's talking about those ma'alot where one can go from the bottom to the top, connecting the lower world to the higher world, connecting the lower Gan Eden paradise to the higher Gan Eden. That is partially the explanation of why here he's talking about specifically those ma'alot, the spiritual ma'alot. Still, it's talking about also the steps in the Bet HaMikdash, in the temple. So this is a song that was sung in the temple, and here he calls out to Hashem, but he says it in the following way. I lift my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? Why the mountains? Because when you go up to the mountains, especially when you go to a higher place, you're able to see what's going on downstairs. Right? From a higher place, even though he's looking to the mountains, in reality, he's looking down, or he's looking at a large area from the top view. And what is he looking for? For help. So it's a description of a situation where he's looking for someone to help him. And he's asking himself, where will that help come from? And this is something that people throughout their life may, from time to time, ask. It could be someone who's been single for a long time. He says, well, from where will my help come? I've contacted so many matchmakers. I've done a lot to search for my soulmate. Where is it going to come from? How is it going to come? Who should I turn to? Who should I speak to? What should I do? It could be someone who's tried many jobs, and either he's fired, or they don't hire him, or he doesn't do well. Or it's just people who are struggling with all kinds of problems. Illness, where the doctors say you have only 2 years to live. It could be that too. From where will I receive the help that I'm searching for, that I need? David HaMelech says, if you ever ask yourself that question, don't forget, so he answers his own question. My help will come from Hashem, the maker of the heaven and earth. Hashem put us here. He's the one that's in charge of the world. He runs the show. We have some free will, of course. But he, in the end, is the one that controls everything, and he makes the final decision. Turn to him directly. As we said before, it is okay and it's completely acceptable to ask people a favor, to make phone calls. Yes, that's the normal thing to do. We don't rely on miracles. We don't even know if our prayers will be heard, depending on our level of spirituality. Not everyone's prayer gets through. We still have to try. But he reminds us, listen, that's the address where we need to turn to get Hashem's help. Some want to say, by the way, that the mountains that David HaMelech is talking about represents Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. Because there are certain prophecies that talk about that the good news will come through those that are looking at a distance. Who's coming? Who's arriving? What's the latest news? The Mevaser, the one that will herald the news, the one that will announce it, will come through the mountains. In other words, it will come in a very, very powerful way, that it will be made public. Everyone will find out about it. So this has some reference to Mashiach, and to that prophecy that talks about how beautiful, how great will that moment be when we get that news, that piece of news that Mashiach is coming. So David HaMelech reminds us that, especially for the Jew, since Hashem does supervise what is going on in his life, he should not forget that he should turn to him. Because he is Oseh Shamayim V'Aretz, he created the world, he brought us into this world, and therefore he can make anything happen. There have been many miraculous stories of people who despaired and figured that they have no way out of their problems, and they saw miracles. Verse 3, Al yiten lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha. This is very encouraging words that David HaMelech reminds us. He will not let your foot falter, your guardian does not slumber. Don't worry. You may think that he's not around, you don't see miracles, you haven't heard of a miracle in the past who knows how many years. He will not let you down. He will not let you falter. Because he, your guardian, does not slumber. Sometimes the guards fall asleep, but not him. So therefore, he's been watching us all these years. The Jewish nation is still around. Even though we've had so many enemies and so many troubles, he will not let you falter. Very important promise that the Jewish people will always be around. They may make mistakes, but the one who's watching over us does not slumber. So even though you may think that way, where is he? He's watching you. He's going to take care of you. Look at the next verse. It's a very, very famous verse, but not everybody understands it properly. We just talked about how Hashem does not slumber. Here, he emphasizes this point even more. Verse Daled, number 4. Hinei lo yanum velo yishan, shomer Yisrael. A lot of people know this verse, but they don't really understand it. Indeed, the garden of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Why say both? Neither slumbers nor sleeps? It's just a repetition. If he doesn't slumber, does he sleep? So there's a very interesting story. It's a long story, I'll just tell it to you briefly. About a priest in Europe, this is several hundred years ago, who caused the Jews a lot of trouble. And his argument was, you guys believe in Moshe because he went up to heaven and was there for 40 days without food and drink. I can do the same. I'll prove it to you. If I fast for 40 days straight, no food and drink, you have to believe in me. You have to believe in what I say. And he convinced the king that this will be the challenge for the Jews, that if they actually see this, that they have to all convert. And this was a dangerous time for the Jewish people, where they suffered from such people, such enemies who tried any way they can to get the Jews to convert. So this priest prepared himself for the day where he was going to start his fast. And he had a little hut built in the king's courtyard where he was going to be for 40 days. And he showed everybody his hut inside. There's no food and drink, right? Check it out yourself. No food and drink. I'm going in there without any food and drink, and I'm going to stay there for 40 days. And you're going to see that I can do exactly what Moshe did. Sure enough, one day after another, the king doesn't see anything going on unusual. Apparently the priest is still there, alive. He didn't hear anything. He didn't ask for food. Nobody went in there. Nobody opened the door. So the king assumed that this guy must be really special. And the time goes by, and the king figures, wow, after a week, for sure, the guy is dead. But there are no signs. I guess he sent somebody to check if the guy is still there. And apparently he hears the priest praying or studying. Apparently still alive. Now this priest, all he had inside, even though he didn't take any food and drink, he did have a candle. Okay? Because he needed a candle to read, to pray. So that he did have. So they were able to see the light a little bit. So apparently he's still alive. And the king is concerned because he was a friend of the Jews. What's going to happen after 40 days if this priest, who hated the Jews, wins his case and proves to the Jewish people that he's just like Moshe? So one night, the king couldn't sleep. He couldn't fall asleep because he was bothered by this. He said, something is not right here. It's impossible. How could he not eat or drink? So he went at night, late at night, and he made a little hole in that hut. He wanted to see what's going on inside. And guess what he sees? That priest took apart the candle. It's a long candle, but it was inside, it was hollow. And that's where he had hid food and drink. Aha. So that's how he's eating. That's how he's surviving. Now I got to think of a plan. He called the Jewish leader and he says, listen, the priest is going to say after 40 days, you see, I'm like Moshe. You all have to convert. And I'm going to be upset at you because you're going to refuse to convert. And I'm going to knock down that candle. And that's when you're going to see the food spill out, whatever remains there. In other words, it had to be in such a way that the priest would not know that he was caught. So that they made up between them. But before he tells the rabbi his plan, he has a question for the rabbi. Rabbi, there's a verse in Psalms, and he points to this verse, that I want you to explain to me. Why does it say God does not slumber or sleep? If he doesn't slumber, then he doesn't sleep either. Right? That was our question. That's the question he posed to the rabbi. What's your explanation for this verse? So the rabbi says, that's a great question. I don't know. It seems repetitious. Why does it say he doesn't slumber and he doesn't sleep? So the rabbi says, I don't know. The king says, I'll tell you the answer. God doesn't slumber and he doesn't let the king sleep. Because he didn't let me sleep last night, I decided to go outside and drill a little hole, and this is what I found. So what I just told you, how do I know it? Because God didn't let me sleep. He doesn't slumber, nor does he let others sleep. Similar to what happened with Achashverosh, He couldn't fall asleep and he has to read the books. So even though that may not necessarily be the real interpretation of the verse, it's definitely true. He doesn't let the kings sleep for some reason. They have to find out some information. But other than that, it's talking about the Hashgacha of Hashem. It's talking about Hashem's supervision over the world. Even though it appears to be that he's slumbering or asleep because we don't see his involvement like it was in the Holocaust. Don't think that he's asleep because he doesn't. He's not. There's some reason why he's not active as much as we would like him to be. But in the background, there are always miracles happening. So that's a reminder to us that even though we may not think so, we may not see it, we don't have clarity as to why Hashem is not involved. Why doesn't he do something about it? How come so many people are suffering? He doesn't slumber, he's completely aware of everything. You may perceive it that way. Pray to him and you might get him to wake up. Not that he's asleep, but you might get him involved. That's why he wants us to pray. Sometimes he holds something back from us just so that in order that we should pray to him. So don't think he's asleep just because he hasn't answered your prayers. Don't forget the Midrash that says that the Jewish people are compared to a sheep that is surrounded by 70 wolves. And who do you think drives away the 70 wolves? That sheep? How strong can a sheep be against 70 wolves? 70 wolves representing the 70 nations. It's the shepherd who has a big stick. That's him. He's been able to drive away many, many times those wolves from attacking the lone sheep. Pasuk Hey, Adonai shomerecha no yitzelecha al yad yaminecha. Hashem is your guardian, Hashem is your protective shade at your right hand. Well, Hashem protects us. What does it mean, he's your shade? The rabbis tell us that the way we act, that's the way they act with us. It's like a shade, or I should say a shadow. Even though it's also a shade, it's a protective shade, but it could also be translated as a shadow. You see your shadow. When you move, the shadow moves. The way a person acts, if you're compassionate over others, they will be compassionate over you. So that protection needs to be earned. If you're kind to others, Hashem will be kind to you. But it's also being compared to a protective shade because it goes with you, that shade. That protection is always there with you. Hashem has angels that He sends to protect you. But what's al yad yaminecha? At your right hand. So the Kabbalah describes this as follows. One's sins are engraved over all his body, over his bones. The sins are somehow engraved. They're there until it repents and atones. The good deeds that a person does are engraved on his right hand. So that's what Hashem looks at. When He protects us, He looks at the deeds, the good deeds that we have performed that are there engraved on the right hand. Pasuk Vav, verse 6, Yomam HaShemesh lo yakeka v'elach baylayla. The sun will not harm you by day nor the moon by night. So this is protection from the elements. As you can see from the various Pesukim, we're talking about all kinds of protections. There could be protection from financial loss, from deceitful people, from thieves, all kinds of protection. We need that. And also protection from the elements, from all kinds of circumstances where we don't have complete control. There have been many, many stories of people that were attacked by wild animals and they were saved miraculously. All kinds of things. So here is just using the example of the Shemesh and the Yareach during the day and during the night. Zayin, verse 7, Adonai yishmorcha mikora yishmor et nafshecha. Hashem will guard you from all evil, He will guard your soul. What's from all evil? From the Yetzer Hara as well, from the evil inclination, who is called Ra. There's a lot of situations where people are tempted. It could be temptation through money, bribery, to commit a sin, to commit a wrong. And of course this will affect our soul. Hashem doesn't want us to fall. Sometimes He prevents an individual from committing a sin. That person didn't ask for it. He was a good guy. And he's just in the wrong place where he's being tempted and he may fall, he may stumble. Hashem will protect you. He will guard your soul from not falling, from not being tempted. We need this protection as well. But Hashem only protects those that first protect themselves, who watch out for themselves. If a person does not care, and he's very, very lax about showing any restraint from committing a wrong, then he's not going to get any extra protection. This has happened a lot with kosher food, where people who are very careful, extremely careful to eat only kosher, sometimes they didn't even realize that they were served something not kosher somewhere. And at the last minute they didn't eat it for whatever reason. Oh, I have a stomachache, a real one. Or something happened, the soup spilled by mistake. And only later on did they find out, wow, Hashem protected me, because in the end it turned out that the chicken was not kosher, the chicken soup. Or the food by mistake was not kosher. So who has that kind of protection? Those who watch out. Then they watch out for them from above. But if a person does not watch out for himself, they're not going to extra protect him. So that's why he says here, from all evil. He will guard your soul from all kinds of situations where you have no knowledge of it. Verse 8, Hashem will guard your going and your coming from now and for all time. Going and coming. Where is a person going and where is he coming? One can say that this is talking about coming into the world and leaving this world. We need extra protection, that our whole life we should be protected from above. From the moment we're born, a baby needs tremendous protection, miracles, and no harm should befall him. Little kids can easily get hurt. But we're not talking necessarily about physical protection here. But Hashem should protect us from sin. We don't want to do any harm to our soul. So He should protect us and be with us from the moment we entered the world. So the word Sitcha means perhaps coming out of the mother's womb, and Bo'echa, your arrival or coming to the world to come. That could be one way of understanding this verse. But the simple interpretation is talking about people who go to business. You leave your home, you don't know what's going to happen. In the road? Anything can happen in the road. People have gone and not come back home. Hashem yishmor tzetecha, as you leave every day to work, Hashem should protect you and make sure that you come home in peace. But what's the significance of coming home in peace? You could just say Hashem should protect you as you leave. Why emphasize also when you come home? So the Zohar speaks about this, that this represents the Mezuzah. The Mezuzah that we have as a protection on the doorpost, protecting our home. That there's certain demons that want to hurt people, and when they see that Mezuzah on the door, they don't enter that home. It acts as a protector. So Bo'echa refers to coming home and being protected in that home. Because if there's no Mezuzah, that home possibly would not be protected. There are many, many stories. I'll just share one with you. Of a young boy, a teenager, who learned about the importance of Mezuzah. And he told his parents who were not religious, I want Mezuzot. It's not only a mitzvah, it's a protector for the home. And the dad was against, I don't want you to put up any Mezuzot. But if you want in your bedroom, fine. You can put a Mezuzah in your bedroom only. This boy, this young man, his bedroom was on top of the garage. You know those homes where the garage is right beneath? That's where the boy's bedroom was. There was a big fire one day in the garage, underneath the bedroom of the boy. He realized that, and he immediately was able to get his parents out of the house just in time. What's interesting is that the fire was underneath his bedroom. The rest of the house was damaged, not his bedroom, even though the fire was right underneath. And it got him to wake up. He saved his entire family. There are many, many stories. You want to hear another one? Another incredible story that happened in Mexico. This story goes back, I think, to 1985. For those of you who followed the news back then, Aeromexico left Mexico City on the way to Los Angeles, I think with a stop in Guadalajara. And there was an explosion on the airplane. And unfortunately, everybody on board died. Everybody, of course, was dispersed. The bodies were dispersed all over the hills. On that flight was a woman, a Jewish woman, and her daughter, unfortunately. And of course, they were killed. They couldn't find the bodies. It was very difficult, terrain. All the parts were spread out. This woman came in a dream to her neighbor. In Mexico, many of the Jewish people live in buildings. So she came in a dream to her neighbor in the same building. And she told her, they're not going to find my body or the body of my daughter until they check the mezuzot in my house. And I can tell you that the one in the kitchen and the one at the entrance are pasur, are no good. So she actually said that those two are no good. They're not going to find the bodies until they check them and replace the bad ones. So I have a friend who checks mezuzot, and he went to the home. And sure enough, those two mezuzot were no good. What was not good about them? The letters in the words, Leman yirbu yemechem v'mi b'nechem, were missing. The letters of the verse, in order that your life and the life of your children should be extended. You should have a long life. Those letters of that particular verse was erased. As soon as those mezuzot were replaced with kosher mezuzot, they called up, the airline called up, that they have found the bodies. And of course, it was a big funeral then in Mexico City for them. Many countless stories of how people who were suffering from all kinds of diseases, once they checked the mezuzah, something was wrong with the letter Ayin in one of them, Ayin representing the eye. He was having trouble perhaps with the eye. Once they fixed that, the person recovered. Many, many mezuzot, many, many stories about mezuzot which show how this is serious. So when he talks about shemirah here, when he talks about protection, this is what he has in mind, that we need protection all over. And if we want to have it, of course, we want to make sure that we are observing the mitzvot, so that our homes should be protected, so that we should be protected where we go, when we leave our homes, wherever we may be, on a plane, in a car, any place. All right, so we're headed towards chapter Kuf Chaf Bet 122. The special powers of chapter 122 is if you want to find favor, you want somebody important that you're going for an interview, or you need his advice, you need to see him and ask for a favor perhaps, that he should like you, that he should help you out, this chapter is good for that. Chapter 122. Shir HaMa'alot LeDavid Samachti Be'omrini Bet Adonai Elech. This is more about the future. David HaMelech is talking about the Bet HaMikdash, which even though he prepared the blueprints and he had something to do with laying the foundation, it was his son that ultimately built it. And here he's talking about how he was overjoyed. He was overjoyed when people said to him, when they said to me, let us go to the house of Hashem. The commentaries say that David HaMelech overheard the following: let this man die, let this king die already, so that his son built the Bet HaMikdash. In other words, they already knew that it was going to be Shlomo HaMelech that will build it. So he heard them say, he used to hear the people say, let him already go, so that his son should start building the temple. And he says, I don't mind hearing that. As long as they're talking about the Bet HaMikdash, they want to see the Bet HaMikdash. Samachti. I'm overjoyed when they said that to me. Let us go. How will this happen? Of course, when he leaves this world, he won't get to see it. But he didn't mind, even though that's what they had. That's what they were talking about. Others, however, say that this is describing the third temple. When once again, the Jewish people will be overjoyed when they will see once again the temple rebuilt, this time the third temple. And they will all talk about, let us go and be there. In the same way that we used to go and see the temple 3 times a year in the past, this is what will happen very soon. This will be the talk of town, to go to the temple. Verse 2, Omdot hayu ragleinu b'she'arayich Yerushalayim. Our feet were standing within your gates, Jerusalem. This is describing what it will be like. In the same way in the past, whenever it was a time for Aliyah L'Regel, the Jews went up to Jerusalem to be at the temple, there were a lot of them. Just about everybody came, all the men. So there's not going to be that much room inside. So they will be standing b'sharayich, at the gates of Jerusalem, describing a little bit of the scene of what it will be like when the multitudes are going to come, when the temple is finally rebuilt. There's going to be so many people, they will be standing by the gates. Now, it could be that these gates are not the gates of the walled city. It's the gates of the city, all the way outside, in the freeways. Who knows? It's going to be so full and packed that you won't even get close. Of course, everybody will eventually be able to come close, but it's the description of how it will be when the Bet HaMikdash will be finally built. Now look at the next verse, because that already describes one of the conditions, in a sense, of what's necessary for that to happen. Yerushalayim habenuya ki'ir shechubera yachdav. Jerusalem that is built like a city in which all Israel is united together. This will be a time when the Jews will unite. This is a time when everybody will come home, all the tribes as well, which is discussed in the next verse. But look at the word Yerushalayim habenuya, Jerusalem that is built. So Zohar talks about another Jerusalem that's going to come down from Shamayim, that's already built. So a part of the temple, a part of Yerushalayim is built upstairs somehow. It's going to come down ready-made. That's why he calls it Yerushalayim habenuya, a Jerusalem that is built. And it's built almost instantaneously. Ke'ir shechubera yachdav. Even though chubera means where they all united, where they all came together, which is a condition for this to happen, that there should be unity. But either way, there is definitely going to be unity when this happens. But still, even before this happens, there should be unity. Chubera, however, also means where everybody has come together, even non-Jews, those who want to contribute, those who want to build it. Everybody from all over the world is going to come. So it's going to be a place, a metropolis, where everybody's going to come together, where a lot of people are going to contribute towards building it. At once, everybody will be interested in it. Daled, shesham alu shevatim shivteya edut Yisrael leodot l'shem Adonai. That's verse 4, where for the tribes went up, the tribes of Hashem, as enjoined upon Israel to offer praise to the name of Hashem. So here is describing the tribes, all the tribes. Today, besides the Kohanim and the Leviim, the priests, you have Yehuda and Binyamin. What about Reuven, Shimon, Gad, Zebulun? Where are they? They're going to come, as the prophets described clearly. Uvau of Dimeres Ashur, they will all come. from all kinds of directions. All of a sudden, you will see them all come to Yerushalayim. This will be, of course, an incredible event in itself, part of the Messianic process, where all the tribes come back together. So that's what he's describing here. This will be a time when they will come, and that will be Edut L'Yisrael. This will be testimony in a sense. This will give testimony to the fact Mashiach is coming. This is the reality as the prophets describe. This will be a testimony to the fact that Hashem is with us, that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is there. So that means the sins must have been atoned for. Because there were sins. That's why the temple was destroyed. But if Hashem is coming back, if the tribes are coming back, if the land is being rebuilt, the temple is being rebuilt, that's Edut L'Yisrael. That will be a place, Leodot L'Shem Hashem, to thank Hashem for everything. Pasuk Hey, Kishama Yashvu, Chisot LeMishpat, Chisot LeBet David, for there stood the seats of justice, the thrones of the house of David. In the past, that's where the Sanhedrin was, the seat of justice, and so will that spot be the seat of justice in the future, because that is where the nations will be judged. So it was Chisot LeBet David, it was the part of the thrones of the house of David, but also a place of justice. Yerushalayim will be a place where every nation will be judged. And that judgment, of course, will be from Shamayim. But it will take place in Yerushalayim. Pasuk Vav. This is an important verse that talks also about what Hashem is waiting for to bring Mashiach. Sha'alu Shlom Yerushalayim Yishlayu Ohavayich. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you have peace. So, ask for peace. In other words, pursue peace. Want peace. Want unity. Don't you want for Yerushalayim to be in peace? You have to shalu. You have to ask for it. You have to pray for it. And that is what we have it in our prayer book. Various times that we mention that we want to go back. We want the temple rebuilt. We want to see it. We want to have the merit of being there. Okay, ask for it. Do you really mean it? But in order for that to happen, you also have to ask for the peace amongst yourself. So Yishlayu Ohavayich, who will ask for that? Those who really love you. These are key words over here. Who's going to ask for it? Who's going to do anything about it? Those who love you. So may those who love you have peace, because they really tried hard. They really prayed for it. They will live to see it. Zayin, verse 7, is talking also about peace. Why so much about peace? We have to remember that the reason why the second temple was destroyed was because of baseless hatred, sinat chinam. So in order for that to go away, for that destruction to go away, for the temple to be rebuilt, we need to have unity. There has to be love. There has to be something that will bond the Jewish people together. And if there is, what's going to happen? Verse 7 says, Yehi shalom mechelech shalva be'armonotayich. May there be peace within your walls, serenity within your mansions. You will see real peace. You will see a real tranquility, shalva, peace of mind. You won't have to deal with the enemies. There won't be any war. So this is describing, of course, what will happen when Mashiach comes. This is what everyone will experience, serenity, peace. But this should happen before. Let there be this peace before, in order that you should experience the ultimate peace and tranquility, where no one will disturb you, where you'll be able to live in peace and not have to worry about anything. So this is something we're all looking forward to, a beautiful time when this will be forever. We will not go back to exile. This time around we're going home and we're staying there. The rabbis tell us there will no longer be any third destruction, any additional exiles. It will be an eternal peace. And of course, once that happens, no enemy will think of even invading Israel. No enemy will even think of attacking. And of course, everybody will be united as they should have been all along. Verse 8, for the sake of my brethren and friends, I ask that there be peace within you. You see it once again, he's asking amongst you. Let there be peace amongst you. Pursue peace. Try to make peace between husband and wife. It's a tremendous big mitzvah. This is the message that Mashiach will bring. I have brought peace. This is what Elyahu Elyahu the prophet is going to talk about, peace. So much is mentioned in our sources about peace. Seek peace. Ohev shalom, rodev shalom. Do everything in your power to try to make peace with your neighbor, with those that you have argued with. Hashem allows even for His name to be erased with a sotah, when there's suspicion about a woman who betrayed the trust of her husband. In order to investigate and find out the truth, that name was put into water and allowed to be erased just to be able to find out the truth, so that they should be able to get back if in fact nothing did happen and he only suspects her. Sometimes the husband suspects. What can we do? Hashem says, you can erase my name if that's what's needed to bring peace. We have to try. It doesn't mean you're always going to have peace. You sometimes have divorce. What can we do? But you have to try your best. That's the key over here. Look at the words Achai v'Re'ai. I ask that there be peace amongst you. Hashem calls to us brethren and friends. In other words, I want to be close to you again. I want to call you my brethren, my friends. For your sake, please be together. Something which is very difficult these days. People are unfortunately, because of politics and other reasons, not together. You see this everywhere. Hashem says, I want to be together with you, but I want to see you first take the initial steps of being together. In the last verse, Leman bet Adonai Eloheinu v'akshat tov lach. For the sake of the house of Hashem, our God, I seek your well-being. So David HaMelech is saying, I seek your well-being. I pray for this temple because I know when the temple will be rebuilt, I know when the Bet HaMikdash will be rebuilt, that it will be good for you. But he's also saying, perhaps, and this is I'm adding, Leman bet Hashem Elokeinu Hashem, hopefully you will do this for your sake. There should be peace in Israel, there should be peace in the world. Build the Bet HaMikdash for your sake. When we ask for Mashiach to come, we're not just asking it for ourselves, for our own benefit, we're asking that this be for Hashem. And of course, when that happens, it will be a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. God's name will be sanctified all over the world. So when we do pray, we shouldn't think of ourselves, we should think of Hashem. That is a very powerful prayer when we don't ask for yourself. When you ask Hashem, do it for your sake. If we pray sincerely for Hashem's sake, then of course, God willing, very soon, very, very soon, we will merit to see the fulfillment of all the prophecies, including the rebuilding of the Bet HaMikdash. Amen.